Welcome back to another episode of the Trauma Queen podcast. I'm your host, Ella. Most people think that trauma lives only in the mind, but trauma actually lives in the body. And in this episode, we're going to be talking about how that works, about how somatics, which is the work of the body or working with the body, ties into trauma healing. So what I mean when I say that trauma lives in the body is what I'm really talking about is implicit memory. So if you've listened to last week's episode, which if you haven't, I highly recommend that you do, we talk about memory processing and we talk about the different types of memory. Now, one of the most important things that you need to understand is that we have these two different types of memory. We have explicit memories and implicit memories. And an explicit memory would be a memory where you have the visuals around that day, you have all of the information around that day, and you can replay it like a little movie in your mind. An implicit memory, on the other hand, is a memory that is stored like an imprint within your body. So it is a natural reaction that happens as a result to something that's happening in your external environment. So for instance, when a ball is coming, when somebody throws a ball and the ball is coming at your face, you quickly put your hands up to protect yourself. That's your body having an instinctual reaction to something before your brain actually realizes what's happening. So your brain doesn't go, there's a ball coming, you need to put your hands up. Your body just naturally does that to protect yourself. Your body also protects yourself in many other ways that sometimes aren't necessarily serving you, but that your body has learnt to do in order to protect you from whatever it was that was happening in your childhood. We can't just think our way out of trauma. The body always has to become a part of the story because the body remembers, sometimes completely separate to the actual mind. I've had so many memories come back up in my body where my mind actually had no idea what was going on. Sometimes the mind is actually, I would say, inferior to the body and inferior to the body's intelligence. The mind is really only looking for what you have what you can consciously remember. The body remembers things that the mind tries to forget or has forgotten. When I say your body has an intelligence, I think one of the coolest facts that I like to tell people about the heart is that the electrical impulses that create your heartbeat actually come from nowhere. Your heart is the only part of your body that literally runs on its own system. Like it doesn't require anything else to beat. So the electrical impulses that actually stimulate each of your heartbeats are coming from a little burst of energy, which tells me that our bodies are what connects us to spirit, soul, creator, God, whatever you want to call it. Our bodies connect us to something beyond ourselves, to something beyond this earth. And so when I think about the mind, I think, well, the mind is kind of like our computer operating system. The mind is like, okay, this is how you survive as a human being in this world based off of who your parents told you that you had to be and the beliefs that you've created. But the body has like a different setup. The body has this superior intelligence to the mind. And when we start to tap into the body and when we start to do somatics and body work, we'll often find that there is not just emotion that is stored in the body. There's also wisdom. There's also information there. A lot of the time with somatics, I will say to people, feel into the sensations in your body and feel into this part of your body and ask your body for that information. Ask your body, why is there so much pain in my heart? Why is there so much pain in my stomach? Why is there so much pain in my right leg? Whatever it is, communicate with that feeling and communicate with the body. The answers that they actually get about why that pain is there is so much more clear and direct and very different to what their logical mind would tell them. So our body really does have this wisdom that we can tap into that is required in order to actually heal trauma, because there are things there that just can't be accessed by the mind. So many women blame themselves for the way that they react to different situations, when in reality, triggers can often be, as I mentioned before, completely unconscious. So you might not actually realize consciously that you've been triggered. There might be a sound or a smell or something that a partner has said to you that has triggered your body's response and taken you physiologically back to whatever it was that was happening in that moment. For instance, I've used the example before of, a child who has a parent that is always in a rush, always angry, always yelling, always aggressive. And, they remember waking up every morning and the first thing was this parent saying, get in the car, get ready, we've got to go to school, rushing them, yelling at them, screaming at them. But they always remember the smell of coffee. Their mum or dad or whoever it was that was getting them ready had a coffee every morning. What happens is over time, they link, I smelt the smell of coffee, which meant that my parent was up and I was about to get yelled at. You don't actually have to logically have that wired into your brain or even be aware that that's what's going on. Your body will remember. So what can happen is, especially with people with complex trauma with a number of these different triggers, you might wake up every morning and your partner puts on the coffee machine to make a coffee and you automatically start to panic. Your body goes back into, I need to protect myself. I need to get ready quickly for the day. It goes through all of these automatic motions. And a lot of people find themselves, in an argument with their partner, in a relationship. They find themselves screaming at their partner or turning away from their partner. They find themselves in these different situations where they want to retract, they want to run away. And it isn't until the trigger has passed that they realize what they've done. It's almost like they start speaking, crying, screaming, whatever it is. And it's like they're a different person. Some people describe it as it's like I'm a different person. And what's actually happening is those triggers are bringing you back into the past, to the point where it actually feels like you're in that past situation. Now, you can process this visually. Absolutely, you can process this in your subconscious mind. You can do the memory processing. But a really big part of that memory processing and of that subconscious belief work and of everything else that you do to heal trauma is that you have to express the words that you didn't get to express. You have to make the sounds. You have to cry. You have to release the emotions so that your body can let it go, because, your body also holds all of that pain. We think that if we're sad and we push it down and we don't cry, that it's just going to go, that it goes away, because it does go away, right? But the way that I like to think about it is that it's like a bucket. And every time you don't cry or you don't scream or you don't yell or you don't do whatever it is that's coming up in your body, it's getting pushed down into this bucket. And this is why women so often crack, and they're healing cracks in their 30s or their 40s, because their buckets are overflowing, because all those tears that they thought were just going away every time they didn't cry were actually storing up and storing up and storing up, and their bucket was getting more and more full. And it gets to the point where almost overnight, they're like, I've got anxiety, I've got depression, there's something wrong with me. Why am I feeling this? When in reality, they just have never learned to feel their feelings. And we think that energy just moves, but energy can't move unless you move it. And the only way that we move it is to express it or to change form, which we're going to talk about that in the next episode around energy. But when it comes to somatics, the body, in order to actually heal from trauma, needs to move in the way that it couldn't move. It needs to say the things that it couldn't say, make the sounds that it couldn't make. It needs to do all of those things in order to actually complete that process. If you don't do those things, there's still words left unsaid. There's movements that need to be made. The body is going to hold that pain. And this is why we get hip pain and lower back pain and neck pain and jaw pain and all of these different sorts of pains as women, because there's words and there's energies and there's feelings that are locked up that are causing us to tighten and restrict and hold on. And we're holding on for dear life to all of our emotions and all of the words and everything that we just don't want to let out. And it's causing us so much dysregulation and pain in our bodies. When we try to suppress what the body is holding or ignore what the body is holding, which I completely understand. I remember there was a period where I had done a lot of healing. Like, I'm talking maybe 9 years of being obsessed with healing. And I called this helpline. At the time, I was really suffering, and I was like, I know all of the things. And she was asking me all these questions, and I was like, this comes from this, and I've got this trauma, and I've got these beliefs, and I shifted this and da-da. And she's like, you're really educated. You know all of the things. But have you ever actually felt any of this pain? Have you ever actually felt the sadness and the grief and like felt all of the feelings that go with this? And I was like, absolutely not. There is no way I'm doing that. And she said to me, your job now is to spend the next 3 months, anytime you have something come up, you're not allowed to dissect it. You're not allowed to think your way out of it. You're not allowed to change your belief or process a memory or do any of those things. You have to feel what needs to be felt. And this is where I leaned into somatics and breath work. And I was that person that would avoid it at all costs, but I wasn't healing. And this is why I'm telling you that you need to do it now, because the cost of avoiding it, numbing it, pushing it down, and that's what we do. We numb it with alcohol, with, scrolling, with online shopping, with whatever it is. Food is one of the most common things. We numb it, we avoid looking at it, we feel it coming up, and we just say, not today. I don't have time to be sad. I don't have time to cry. I don't have time to grieve. We push it all to the side. And as I said before, it comes up in physical ways. And we have all of these physical health issues, which for me was migraines at least once a week, sometimes twice a week, fatigue so bad that I couldn't leave bed, like just constant headaches, neck pain, Panadol, painkillers every single day, just constant pain. And now when women come to me with pain, I know that their body is holding a lot that needs to be expressed and said. And it took me a couple of weeks to just like really land with what that lady had said and to actually lean into it, because I was absolutely terrified. And this is where even brave women who are willing to say that they're willing to look at their trauma, they're often willing to process the beliefs. They're often willing to do the memory processing things. But when it comes to how did that make you feel, and can you express those sounds, and can you actually feel what that felt like and allow that emotion to move through you, there's a really big block there when it comes to the feeling aspect of things. And it's just because feeling is so uncomfortable. Nobody wants to feel guilt and shame and anger or rage or pain at all, and sadness and all of those emotions. Like we label them as bad emotions. And so we don't want to feel them. We push them to the side. But as I said before, they just build up. And one of the most powerful things that you can do is become comfortable with the full spectrum of emotions. Oh, I'm feeling guilty right now. Where's this guilt coming from? What do I feel guilty about? But also allowing yourself to feel it. Once you're not afraid of your emotions anymore, once you go, oh, I'm feeling really angry today. What do I want to do with this anger? How am I going to express it? And you just see it as an emotion, you start to, that is a very powerful place to be, because what causes most people to become addicted, to have really bad coping mechanisms, whether that be emotional eating, whether that be porn addictions in men, whether that be alcohol addictions, drug addictions, whatever it is, what they are trying to escape is not really what happened to them, but the feelings that they had to feel, that those feelings of terror, those feelings of panic, those feelings of isolation, of loneliness, of being trapped. Those are the feelings that they're so afraid of resurfacing. It's not the what, it's not the visual, it's the feeling. And so if we just process the visuals and we work on the beliefs and we do all this kind of high-level brain stuff, our body is still trapped in the past. Our body still thinks that we're stuck, we're frozen, we're trapped, we're isolated, we're alone. Our body doesn't know until we allow those feelings to come up and we process them. So what somatics actually looks like in practice, and somatics is work of the body with the body. What it looks like is working with the body in whatever way that it wants to communicate. So whether that be movement, sometimes, people will say to me, I'm shaking. And I'm like, great, your body wants to shake. Can you lean into that shaking feeling even more? And instead of just letting your body tremble, can you actually start to shake your whole body? Can you start to move? That's energy wanting to be discharged, and that's emotion wanting to be discharged. If you were in a memory where you were trapped, you were pinned down, you were stuck, you're in a place that you couldn't get out of, somatic healing looks like maybe processing that memory and then going for a run, allowing your body to experience what it feels like to put one foot after the other and run, because in the moment, that's what you wanted to do. So you don't just, and this is where I often prescribe for women that have been, things like sexual trauma, where they've been pinned down and they've been abused and their body has been violated and they've felt weak and powerless, to go out and do a fighting class, to go out and do a boxing class where they actually can start to do those physical movements with their body of pushing, of punching, of fighting back, of kicking. Something heals when the body starts to realize, I'm getting stronger, I'm getting more powerful, and it gets to make those movements. Now, if you can make those movements whilst processing a memory, like in the midst of being in the theta brainwave, being in the memory, I'll often say to women, like, if there is a sexual trauma memory where there's someone on top of them, I'm like, scream, like say, get off of me, get the fuck off of me, like scream at them and push your hands like you're actually pushing them off. Now, this is where pairing this together, this is why we do the 4 pillars of healing, because a lot of somatics don't actually take you back into the memory. They just get you to move the body in the way that it wants to move, which on its own is powerful, but doing it in a memory, in a moment, it makes it so much more powerful. In a healing setting, in a one-on-one therapy session, it looks like saying the words out loud. It looks like standing up for yourself, speaking up, talking back to the parent that you would be punished for talking back to, or the ex-partner who always put you down, like saying what you wanted to say to them out loud as if they were right there in front of you. For men as well, I've worked with a lot of men who were bullied when they were younger, and when they grew up, they've kept this feeling of like powerlessness. And so there's sessions where I've got them to fight back, but also to like actually imagine that they are like beating somebody up. And it sounds bad because it's like, well, we shouldn't do that. Like it's wrong to harm people. But when we're only doing it in that somatic way in our mind, because it's what our body wanted to do to protect ourselves, it actually has a really positive effect. And some people say, I don't want to say those words to my mum or to my dad, or like, I don't want to say those words because I don't want to hurt them. And I always say to them, this is why you do it in a session, because you're not actually harming anyone. You're getting the words out of you, but you're not actually affecting anybody else. And so this is the power of somatics. It's sound, it's movement, and it's also breath. And the way that we kind of incorporate this into a session as well is through the nervous system. So we're regulating the nervous system, which is obviously a part of the body, all throughout the session. So when we're working one-on-one with somebody, we see like they're fighting back, they're screaming. That is purging, but it's also a level of dysregulation. So then we're also going to get them to do some slow, calm breathing, some sighs. Sighing is one of the best things that you can do for your nervous system, especially if it's sighing from the back of your throat. It is a sign to your nervous system and to your body that the danger, the threat has passed. If you think about when you sigh, it's when you've had like the end of a really good day, or at the end of a stressful day, when you get home and you finally get to put your feet up and you go, that sigh is a signal to the nervous system that everything's okay. And so things like sighs we incorporate into these sessions so that you can tell your body after we've processed that memory, the threat is gone now. We'll speed up the breathing and use the breath to bring up emotions and energy when we need to, and we'll slow down the breathing when somebody is really activated and stressed out by the trauma. We'll slow their breathing down to regulate them and to calm their body back down. The breath really does control the session, and it controls the way that a person is feeling. It's really underrated method as well. If you're feeling stressed, you close your eyes for 90 seconds and you do some really deep, slow breathing and you open your eyes, and I can guarantee that your stress level is cut in half. Maybe not for very long if you've got a dysregulated nervous system, because you'll just kick straight back into fight or flight. But those little breaks and the power of actually slowing down the breath physiologically does regulate your nervous system and does strengthen your nervous system over time, which somatics, working with the body, having a strong nervous system, is what's going to allow you to be able to process all of that old trauma as well. So releasing trauma through the body is very different to just talking about it. If I was to go to a psychologist or go into a talk therapy session, I could tell you that my dad did XYZ and that it hurt me and it felt like this and it felt like that. But actually going back into memories where those things happened and being able to express out loud as if that person is right there in front of you, as if you're speaking directly to them. Again, we have to be in the correct brainwave and we have to be visualizing it in the memory. But the power of saying those words out loud when you're in that correct brainwave is so much more impactful than talking about the way that something made you feel. Because just talking about the way that something made you feel or talking about what happened doesn't actually change what happened. What changes what happened is when you actually go back into it and you create a new blueprint. Like this was that memory processing episode, retrieving and recoding. And part of recoding is saying out loud the things that you wish you could have said. And a lot of healing modalities do therapy or do this subconscious belief work, and they do subconscious or inner child healing, but they do it all in the mind. They get their clients to visualize, imagine that you're saying this to your inner child, or imagine you're saying this to this person. And it still is powerful, but something that I started trying maybe 6 years ago with clients was, I wonder how much more impactful it would be if they said it out loud. And even though it's uncomfortable, because it is uncomfortable to lay down with your eyes closed and imagine that someone is in front of you whilst a therapist is watching you and say, I hate you and I wish you did this and I wish you did that. Like that can be really uncomfortable to say that in front of somebody and imagine that you're speaking to someone who isn't there. But I thought I'm going to try it. And I had enough clients who were willing to try it, and the impact on their healing and the impact on how rapid and powerful and deep those sessions were and how quickly they were shifting was 10x. It was so much more powerful once they started to say it out loud. And I hadn't even studied somatics at this point. This was just me going, you know what? Words have power, words have impact. And if your body wanted to say those words, I think it's more powerful if we say them out loud, and let's give it a test. So this is one of the most powerful things that you can do. And you can actually do this, you know, not with those really big traumatic memories, but with some of those smaller memories. You can do this on your own. If you've got a boss that you hate at work, you can come home at night and put on some theta music and close your eyes and imagine that your boss is there in front of you, what they've said to you that day that pissed you off, and grab your pillow and yell at them or say like, no, like you do that job or whatever it is. Like say those words as if you're saying it back to them, saying it out loud into that pillow or just out loud. If there's no one around, just say it out loud, but closing your eyes, imagining that you're saying it and saying the words out loud is so much better than standing in the shower and just playing the conversation over in your head and getting more angry. So you can actually express it and get it out of you by saying those words. It's way more impactful if you do that whilst listening to a binaural beats or a theta frequency, which you can find on like Spotify. If you type in THETA theta frequencies, you can find a heap of different music there that will help to get you into that brainwave. Think maybe we'll do that one in the next episode with energy, because we'll do energy and motions. Yeah, I was going to go and I'm like, oh no, we'll save it. So some of the signs that trauma is still stuck in your body is physical pain, health issues. There are so many women that come to me with endometriosis, or there's so many different health concerns that you can actually look up that link back to traumas or to emotions that haven't been expressed. But some of the most common signs are being triggered without knowing why you're triggered. So if you're constantly having these like roller coaster of emotions, there's emotions there that need to be felt and need to be expressed. So you might be like, oh, I don't necessarily have trauma, or I'm not really sure if there's anything that needs to be expressed, emotions that you haven't expressed. Most of the time, the most obvious sign to me that somebody has emotions that they need to work with, or that they have things that are trapped in their body, is this physical pain or the responsiveness. Like, so if there's a trigger in their relationship, or if they're constantly being triggered and they're having this roller coaster of emotions that they can't control. So it's not like, oh, I'm feeling a little bit sad today. It's like, uncontrollable emotions, uncontrollable anger, having these like rage outbursts at your kids or your partner. These are signs that there is some somatic work, there is some emotions and energy that needs to be healed and shifted. I have so many clients that I have seen become completely free after including this somatic work in their healing. I have clients who were really afraid of their emotions. There's one client in particular that comes to mind who had so many panic attacks that she was panicking every single day, that she was going to have a panic attack, and the panic every single day was causing more panic attacks. And she had become so afraid of her feelings that she was constantly experiencing the panic every day that she was so afraid of experiencing. And so what I did with her was we got her comfortable with feeling and experiencing the panic whilst in a regulated space, where I was able to work with her and to say to her, you're not dying, you're not having a heart attack. Keep feeling the panic. Allow yourself to keep feeling the panic until you feel it shift. And so becoming unafraid of your feelings is one of the most powerful things that you can do. And the only way to do that is to lean into them. And that's what the women in the online trauma clinic will help you to do. They pair these somatics so that you can actually start to feel and experience those feelings. And the thing is, you're not just feeling the old feelings for the sake of feeling them. You're feeling them for the sake of tipping out that bucket. Every time you cry, every time you say the words that you wanted to say, that's being released physically from your body, whether it's words, movement, that energy is being discharged from your body. You're going to be feeling lighter, you're going to be feeling more free, but also your capacity to hold those emotions in the future is bigger. If you imagine it like a container, like if you've only ever been able to hold and experience the tiniest bit of grief without running away from it, and all of a sudden you allow all of this grief to come to the surface and you feel it, your capacity to experience that grief is growing, which means that in the future, when something happens that causes you to feel grief again, you actually aren't going to spiral and go into a dark place, because you're like, I felt more grief than this before and I was still okay. You're giving yourself evidence that you can actually experience those emotions and nothing tragic is going to happen. And this, again, was one of the missing pieces with my work. I would feel a tiny bit of fear and I would be like, I'm dying. I don't want to live anymore. This is too much. I'm panicked. I'm dying. And I go down this dark hole. Once I got comfortable with my emotions, it was the missing piece, because all of a sudden now I feel a bit of fear and I'm like, ooh, what's that fear? Where's that coming from? And it doesn't derail me. That was never the case for me. So this is the power of working with the emotions in a somatic way to expand your capacity to be able to hold those emotions. In my own healing, I remember, this is going to sound so witchy woo-woo, but I remember there was this day that I had just started. I was probably 2 months into somatic work, and I had been to like a number of different breath works, and I'd been doing these different somatic exercises of just tapping into my body, asking my body how it wants to move, and doing like very strange movements that my body wanted to do. And I was folding the washing, and my now ex-husband at the time was out with the kids, and this huge storm started to roll over. And as this storm came and all the wind was like blowing in the windows, I felt this huge wave of emotions hit me from nowhere. And because I was in this realm of like, okay, like we move our body and we feel what needs to be felt, I was like, okay, I feel like I want to cry, so I'm going to let myself cry. And as I started to cry, it was like my body was yelling words at me. Like I could almost hear my body speaking, and my body was just like, get on the ground. And I was like, okay, I'm on the ground now. And I was like, it was almost like I was giving birth, like on all fours, but I was kind of rocking back and forth, and I was like screaming and crying, and I just felt all of this like stuff coming out of me. And it was wild to me, who was experiencing it, thinking, what is happening and why am I doing this? But I just kept moving with it. I just kept moving my body. I was moving my hips back and forth. And there was, at that point, I didn't really know, but afterwards realizing there was a lot of sexual trauma kind of leaving my body, and I was like getting rid of it, like pushing it out of me. And I was crying and I was screaming. And it was probably 2 days after that a lot of that sexual trauma that I had processed visually. I'd processed the memories, didn't have flashbacks anymore. I'd worked on all the subconscious beliefs. That after that, I felt this freedom in my body, and I didn't feel shame. I didn't feel anything. Like, I felt so much more at home and comfortable in my body, and that was a pretty wild experience. But I'm sure that probably doesn't happen to everyone, but I did share that, and there was quite a few women that had these, they'd unlocked and they'd had these experiences where their body would just got really loud and they wanted to do things that they'd never wanted to do before or never thought of doing before, whether it was ecstatic dance or whether it was breath work or whatever. But yeah, that was a really powerful example of bringing all of those different pillars of healing together, and what happens when you do just allow your body to move in the way that it's like pushing you and guiding you to move. So if you don't work with the body, you can't ever fully heal trauma. It is impossible. And I know this because I was that person that did everything that I could to try and avoid doing body work or to do any sort of feeling work or just connecting back in and tapping into my body. And this is really common with women with sexual trauma because they don't want to be in their body. They want to be out of their body, dissociated, checked out, numb, because being in their body brings up so many uncomfortable feelings. So, but the unfortunate truth is that you do have to be in your body in order to heal. You have to be in your body in order to experience life. And if you're not comfortable being in your body, you're going to keep checking out and be dissociated, and you're just going to be a shell of yourself. So in order to actually feel all of the good, and in order to actually experience being a human and love and joy and ecstasy and pleasure and all of the and play and just all of the beautiful things that life has to offer, and that feeling of being truly alive, you can't experience that if you're not in your body, if you're dissociated and checked out. So you have to be able to be working with your body in order to heal to the point where you get to experience this life and where you get to thrive. I think as women, we absolutely have been conditioned to disconnect from our bodies and also disconnect from our needs and from our wishes and our desires. And I think this comes from, for a lot of women, it comes from, there's a family member that you don't really see very often, and it's like great uncle so-and-so, and it's like, no, give him a hug, and you're this little girl and you're like, well, I don't want to, my body is saying no, like I don't know him, he doesn't feel safe, and your parents say, just give him a hug, like don't be rude. And if you have parents that tell you constantly to betray what your body is wanting to do, whether it be giving a family member a hug or a kiss, or whether it be being pushed into doing something that you don't want to do, we eventually learn that we have to do things that we don't want to do. And so we start to actually ignore our body's cues. And sexual trauma is a really big one, again, because you can get so used to ignoring your body's cues to the point that you actually don't understand anymore what's going on with your body. I remember one of the most fascinating things that happened once I began to heal was that I would realize that I would need to go to the toilet, and I would get up and go to the toilet. And that sounds really simple, but for my entire life, I was so used to ignoring my body that I would hold on to my wee sometimes for hours and hours, and I wouldn't get up. I wouldn't go, oh, I need to do a wee. I'm going to get up and go to the toilet. I wouldn't register because I was not connected to my body at all. So just these and I was an extreme example, but even just through parents, you saying, I've got a sick tummy or I feel sick, and them saying, no, you're fine, and kind of dismissing what your body is showing you or telling you, you eventually start to learn not to listen to your body. And your body, and the more that you ignore your body, the louder it will scream at you. And this happens with people who ignore, a headache, that then it turns into, they start getting migraines, to then it turns into some bigger health issue, because your body does talk to you, but you have to listen to it when it talks to you. The thing with somatics is that you have to feel safe in order to actually somatically release. And I think that comes down to safety with your therapist. And you have to feel safe with them as a starting point. Once you feel safe with them to guide you and to hold you and to support you and to not judge you, you're going to be able to release so much more deeply. So finding a therapist that you feel safe with and that you feel can hold all of your different emotions is really powerful. The body isn't going to release when it's constricted and when it's protecting itself. So actually finding a therapist that can break down those barriers first. And a lot of the time, those barriers first are subconscious. So whether it's not safe for me to feel, it's not safe for me to express my emotions, I'll get in trouble. There can be so many like limiting subconscious beliefs there that we need to shift and create this feeling of safety in the mind before we start to feel it, or even allow it, not so much feel it, but allow it in the body. So for women who are feeling completely disconnected from their bodies, if you are identifying with the fact that you're on an emotional roller coaster, you're constantly triggered, you might be dissociated regularly, one of the most simple practices that you can do is to put on a song that you love and lay down on the ground and just listen to that song and ask your body, how do you want to move? And it sounds very simple, but what you have to do is build up this relationship with your body where you can trust your body and your body can trust you, but also where you listen to your body. So there used to be times where I would try these somatic practices where I would lay down. And I remember in one breathwork session specifically where my head, I just wanted to keep turning my head to the left, like almost like a twitch, like it was just wanting to like twitch to one side. And I felt silly because I was like, why is my head doing that? Like I look crazy just flicking my head to the side, but it was exactly what my body wanted to do. And this is where people are often really embarrassed, even in front of themselves, to do some of the somatic exercises. So one of the best things that you can do is just getting comfortable with that. So put on a song, lay on the ground and see what your body wants to do. Your hips just might want to shake from side to side. You might want to like flick your hands, like you might want to shake, you might want to get up and dance, but just laying down and seeing how your body wants to move, whether it's gentle swaying, whether it's fast movements, whatever it is. Just coming into your body, like bringing all of your attention and awareness into your body and then just asking it, how do you want to move? What do you want to do right now? How do you want to move? And allowing it to move in that way. And one thing here is that often, especially like when you've got a weird twitch head thing going on or something that feels unnatural, you can often be like, oh, that's enough of that now. I've done enough of that. When you hear that thought come in, I want you to just lean in a little bit more and keep doing whatever that movement is for as long as until it feels complete. And that can't really make sense to you until you actually try it. But there will be a moment where all of a sudden it kind of dies down, the urge dies down, and it feels complete. And that session actually, where I was moving my head from side to side, at the end of that breathwork session, I said to the practitioner who was leading me, like, that felt so strange. I felt really embarrassed, but I had to just keep going. And I'd had a lot of neck pain. And like since then, my neck pain has been barely anything. Like there was something in there that just needed to come out. There was actually for me a memory that linked to it once I kept moving. And I could see this memory and why my neck was hurting. But this is the power of like your body will show you. So just ask it to show you, but then trust it and follow through until it feels complete. So somatics is the third pillar that we've spoken about now of the 4 Aaruka pillars. And somatics fits in, as you can see, if you've listened to the other 2, you'll see that we can do somatics alone. We can do subconscious alone. We can do memory processing alone. We can do energetics alone. But blending all 4 of these things together is what makes Aaruka so powerful and what is going to rapidly increase the power, but also how fast your healing journey is going to be. So actually doing the somatics whilst in the theta brainwave, whilst in moments and memories in the past is where that magic is. So if you are wanting to experience this, if you're wanting to experience all of this blended together, this is why I've created the online clinic. You can also start to experience there is more sort of guided meditations and tips and tricks on somatics, nervous system regulation, all of this, creating safety, everything is covered in the Trigger to Thriving program. So the Trigger to Thriving series, 5-part series, taking you all the way through all of these different layers, moving from intense sort of traumas and trauma healing to belief work to moving into like stepping into your power, speaking up, creating flow in your life, finding your purpose, all of those layers covered in this step-by-step guide. So if you're not quite ready to book in with someone in the online clinic, not quite ready to do it in front of someone, or you want a bit more education to kind of guide yourself with those self-healings, Trigger to Thriving is where I would start. So thank you for listening to this episode today, and I will see you on the next episode.